Right in. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of She Got Next, a series that features women who are diverse, who are dynamic, that are making the industry of sports go. I'm joined by two incredible guests. I did not have an afternoon coffee. I'm in DC right now, so it's 2:00 my time. I did not have an afternoon coffee because I didn't want to jump through the screen with my energy, but it happens inevitably. But I know you guys are in the Bay Area, so you're just easing a bit into your day. I'm grateful that you've made time for me. Nadine is the Marketing Communications Chair as part of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of WISE. Also joined here today with Becca Smith, who is the Events Chair. WISE stands for Women in Sports and Events. And I want to jump right in because I believe we're in an incredible era right now. Women's sports and women that are working in sports are receiving exponential growth in investment, in viewership, in acknowledgement of the impact you all have been making. And WISE isn't an organization that's new, right? Like a lot of people are just being introduced to this stuff, but it's been around for more than 30 years. So you all have been known about your impact. But I'm just eager to know how you feel about the energy that is surrounding the industry. And again, women specifically working in sports. Let's start with you, Nadine. You've got a storied history in sports. How does it feel to you?
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. The journey, the women that have been involved in sports historically, obviously like anyone else in their industry that have been involved a long time, there's a passion for it. I was a tomboy growing up. I was always an athlete. I played basketball and softball from grade school, high school, college, and was a psychology major and didn't know. My mom was a psychologist. I thought I'd go into sports psychology, and was literally looking for something to do after college, and ended up going to the Ohio University Sports Administration program because sports is my passion. And ended up from there, that was my internship from my master's degree was with a baseball team up at the Cleveland Guardians, and fell in love with it as far as the baseball schematic went in professional sports, and worked in professional sports then for about close to 30 years.
So you've just talked about your journey. I'm wondering, like, the energy you feel around, is it like palpable to you? It has to feel like.
So when I was in college, when I watched the Final Four now, and I watched the women's tournament, and the cheerleaders and the bands and the fans and the support outside the buildings and the WNBA, I just can only think back about being in college and looking up in the stands, and basically nobody's there except for people's parents. And then as that advanced and more women played and the talent was getting better, there was the 1996 Olympic team. And when they won those gold medals, I was in tears in my living room because that was over 10 years after I graduated from college. And I was just like, my goodness, this is amazing. And then from there, to watch the 99ers, the soccer team win the World Cup. And then just in the past 6 months, I got to meet Brandi Chastain and just think, oh my gosh, this is just amazing. And the growth and the development, I'm still involved with it because it's still a passion of mine, but to just see this and to almost echo the things I said 100 years ago, that is exactly what you just mentioned just now about the enthusiasm and the money and the investment, and everyone is watching women's sports, and it's a great product. I mean, it is just remarkable. So whether it's soccer or rugby or basketball, pinch me. Like I said, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, there are volleyball leagues, professional volleyball leagues coming up. Rugby, like you said, rugby's become a big thing because of the Olympics.
Yep.
I appreciate you kind of going back in time because I've been thinking about this for a while now. In 96 and 99, I feel like we have these eras, these events that really get women excited about sports. It's like the dream team. We win the Gold Cup. We have an incredible Summer Olympics where some stars are born, and then it kind of dies down a bit. But again, this feels like a new era. It feels a bit sustained. And Becca, I'm curious to know how you feel about it. Your experience kind of in this drama. It feels like it feels so palpable. It's exciting.
Right. Yeah, I think I get a little bit of a unique perspective. I'm the events chair for WISE, but my daytime role is with the Bay Area Host Committee, which is the sports commission for the Bay Area. So we're constantly bidding on mega sporting events to come to the region. And what's cool is our board is all of the presidents of all the pro sports teams. So with Bay FC coming to the market and recently the Golden State Valkyries, there's a different level of energy as I'm in conversations around like, what are we bidding on for women's sports to come to the Bay Area? And it's just it's shifting. It's completely shifting. And FIFA Women's World Cup being awarded for 2031, hoping the Bay Area is a big player in that bid. And just the conversations are now, how, to Nadine's point, it's a product that people love. And so we're not saying, oh, we need to have a women's event here because that's the right thing to do. It's like, no, we are bidding on them because it's financially the best thing to do. And the people love it. And if you bring it, it's kind of like if you build it, they will come. And so being a part of that and, strategizing how can the Bay Area be a big hub for women's sports, and leaning into whys also for that. And it's a really fun time.
As a Bay Area native, Becca, you have my dream job. You get to do the thing that I would love to do, talk about how awesome the Bay Area is. And I've always kind of grown up with this idea that it's an embarrassment of riches out there. The weather, of course, is amazing. We're a couple hours away from snow, from the ocean, from the mountains, from the valleys. So we've got a lot going on. In addition to that, there are the story franchises. We've got a wealth of sports history there. And as you mentioned, even more growth with Bay FC, with the Valkyries. Right. It's been incredible. As part of the Bay FC, or a part of the host committee, your job is to kind of sell the Bay. But I'm wondering, is it really that hard of a sell, Becca? I mean, it's kind of amazing, isn't it?
Oh, what's hard is the media's view of the Bay Area. So I think we have to fight a lot of times, especially post-COVID, like, this place isn't completely crime-ridden. It's not like what people are imagining who don't come to San Francisco or the Bay Area as a whole, but it's not quite what the media portrays it. When people who live here, grew up here, like to your point, Olivia, like you have the mountains, you have the city, you have the beach, you have all of those things, but really having to fight on like a national and global scale, the media perception. So I think it's funny as we're hosting Super Bowl 60 and the FIFA World Cup in 2026, the league's coming here and saying, wow, this is such an amazing town, an amazing city. And we should be on the level of LA and New York of hosting these global events once every couple of years. We should be in that rotation. But I think our job as the host committee is to really like change the narrative of the leagues, because we have to convince them that we are the place to be. So I think we have a big responsibility heading into 2026 that to do it really well and to bring everyone across the world to the Bay Area and show them what it's really about. And so I think just starting to slightly shift everybody's mindset as this is not a place you need to avoid. This is the place to be. And so I think bringing Bay FC and the Valkyries here specifically, it's like we're bringing so much positive attention. And we just hosted NBA All-Star a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
I think just slowly but surely we're changing what that means on the women's front, but also just as a city.
In general. Yeah. And even thinking about it as a city, I think it's also informing the public about how big the Bay Area actually is.
Right.
And when we watch the 49ers on Monday Night Football, like that's actually Santa Clara. How do we get down there? So there's transportation issues. And I understand that the host committee's focus is really about investment and giving opportunity for growth for the teams, for the cities, for the areas where these events take place. And it's a little bit of a balancing act. Because like you said, you have to understand the what people think about the Bay Area, their ideas about it being very liberal, and maybe there's some crime issues, or we let people do whatever they want on the street. There's also this is where people who are innovators are nurtured. Right. This is where we're a hub for education. Some of the best institutions in the nation are here, but it is about educating the public and also knowing that the people who live there are going to reap the benefits of the investments that are being put into those neighborhoods and communities.
Right. Totally. I mean, I think what's so unique about this host committee is it existed for Super Bowl 50 and college football playoff in 2019, but with this third iteration, like we are run completely by women. Our entire C-suite is women, which is just so rare in sport, as Nadine knows. And it's been such a cool thing to wear both hats, because with host committee, it's like these women have been in the industry for so long. Like they've been carrying the torch for so many years, and they're so supportive of WISE and how do we invest in women in sports business and how do we bring them along the journey. And so I think, Allie Woodson on our team is the same thing. She's on the WISE board and also the host committee. And so just using our platform to put women in the spotlight and give them opportunities that maybe they haven't had in the past, and leaving a legacy. And these events are going to come and go, but what does this region stand for? And how can sport really be, how can we use it to like unite the Bay again and leverage it for when, the games will come and go, but that it should really be bettering our community and leaving a lasting legacy. So it's just a fun time to be in the Bay, honestly. It's a fun time to be a woman in sport in the Bay.
That's incredible. I love to talk about the Bay Area. You're both, let me say that again. You're both East Coast transplants. Yeah? Did you go?
I'm Nashville, so I'm Central Time, but East Coast-ish.
East Coast-ish?
Yes.
And Nadine, where did you come from?
Well, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, but we relocated from basically New York City, New Jersey, about 12 years ago.
Well, what does it feel like to be a fan in the Bay? Because those are both two huge cities that have incredible fan bases. Does it feel as intense? Is it just a kind of different type of fan?
My experience in sport as in the fandom space, being in Cleveland and then being on the East Coast and then coming out here, the people in the Bay Area are passionate about their teams. Sadly, the A's just left, and sadly, the Raiders have gone. But having a personal connection with the Warriors experience and building this franchise and being basically as a fan treated to what is this Warriors legacy has just been second to none. But the real respect I have is the fact of learning that the fans here in the Bay Area have supported the Warriors forever. And the energy that was at Oracle that has now transferred over to Chase Center is just amazing. And to have been able to be treated again night in and night out to what this Warriors team has been over the last 10 to 15 years is just remarkable. I have this saying about the New York Yankees: they never get tired of winning. And neither do the Warriors, and the expectation, but the fans are there no matter what. And it's just a treat. And again, you can feel that energy. The Valkyries now, their sellouts, their season ticket sales, the following, the Bay FC following. Again, as this conversation is going, it's just so energizing and exciting.
It's funny, like the Warriors' growth, I think, is kind of parallel to women in sports and women's sports growth. Because as a native, again, like the Warriors have been great for a while now. But when I was a kid,
right
on the back of the Pepsi cans, it was like, please take this can, you can get a ticket. But they've invested, they drafted really well. And we're at this point for the last 10 years or so where it's like, we have sustained a fan base and we've seen a return on that investment and people showing up wearing the jerseys, the fandom, and, showing up to those big parades at the end of the year. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm cheering for the Warriors from October to June. I expect them to go this far. And I think that's been a bit of a challenge that the WNBA has had to overcome, and that there are a lot of people who are still watching the NBA while the WNBA is going, and they may shift to something like baseball. Mm-hmm. But I do think at this point they've gotten better, and I'm not imagining that either of you are going to throw your opinions in here, but you're welcome to share it. I was a college basketball. I played basketball growing up. I was a college basketball fan, but it was difficult for me to shift into being a WNBA fan because of when the season was. And I love the Connecticut versus the Tennessee. That rivalry was huge, and it was huge for women at that time. But it was a challenge about communicating and really kind of focusing on marketing those stars on the next level. You both are parts of events and marketing. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know, like, what lessons you've noticed, you've learned, or that you are spotting with how the WNBA and other women's leagues are really focusing on storytelling and communicating what is so unique about what these women are doing now. How about you, Nadine?
Well, my history is that I moved from the East Coast. I worked at the NBA/WNBA.
Yeah.
I launched the junior NBA programs, junior WNBA programs, with the idea of surging this grassroots love, of basketball. And the WNBA specifically, it's interesting that you mentioned about shifting to the summer, because quite honestly, I had the debate with people in the powers that be to say, maybe you guys should rethink when the season happens. At the time, this was now in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, the league was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
The franchises were struggling. And so, the throwing the ideas against the wall to say, what should we rethink here? And my thought was always, well, one, maybe the season should mirror the other basketball season, which is in the fall and the winter. But also broadcasting, to me, to work with our partners, we needed exposure, right? The WNBA and the highlights and the quality of play that was improving needed to be seen. And you can tell me all you want that you're going to broadcast a game that's going to get lost. Great, the Seattle Storm's going to play, the LA Sparks, but no one's watching. Let's get a highlight on Sports Center. Let's get a few highlights on Sports Center. And perception is reality. So that to me is the marketing door to walk through to say, hey, this is catching on. And so, it's interesting because obviously the season didn't change, but the broadcast and the additional broadcast rights, right? So that ESPN ended up, committing to the college Final Four, the women's Final Four, all of those pieces and parts helped, the energy that was rolling toward this broader success. And so, it all caught on. I think it just dials back to the passion and the commitment that but not only the women that have had, but the sports fans have had and appreciated, the growth of specifically women's basketball. But not for nothing, that soccer team and the USA soccer team, really people noticed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So those pieces to me, help that open the doors. And I hope, things like the grassroots initiatives where we're encouraging more girls to play sports, kids to play sports, has made an impact, on the success. And then over to the WNBA, doesn't hurt to have a few superstars, land on the map to make such a difference.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Becca.
I was just going to say, I would add to what Nadine's saying, that I think that women's leagues are discovering that we don't want to replicate the NBA content. Like the women's sports fans are so unique and different to men's teams fans. So like really leaning into their own brand and marketing to a different way. Like we don't want them to replicate what the Warriors are doing or what the Quakes are doing. I think, really leaning into who they are and tapping into like the kind of content that these fans want is different. Another thing that I think is important to highlight is that women's, to Nadine's point about star athletes, like they're from an influencing content, like these women's players are so marketable. And I think brands and leagues are starting to figure out like, oh my goodness, these stars have big followings. Like how do we lean into that more so than the men are doing? And so I think there's just a different, these fans like to take in a different type of content and they want to follow a female athlete player. And I think to Nadine's point about the US team in 99 and everything with the US women's national team really, I feel like was such a launching pad for how these leagues do it. And I mean, I know for sure that it's like I'm invested in the Brandi Chastains, the Alex Morgans, the Simone Biles of the world, and I'm following them as their sport for sure, but also their lifestyle. And so I think just women are, even in the NIL space for college, it's like you're just seeing that they're really leaning more into who they are on a personal brand level, and fans eat it up.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big difference between men's and women's, in my opinion.
Well, I think we're not saying the obvious part out loud, but social media.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, it's the culmination of all of these things, right? It's been investment, it's been eyeballs, it's been broadcasting, but social media has really provided an opportunity for these individual women, these athletes, to tell their stories,
Yeah.
to talk about their day. You see what kind of makeup they're using. So here comes Sephora. You see
Yes.
what kind of
Yes.
workout gear they're wearing. So here comes Athleta. So yeah, those brands are coming because they want to attach themselves to these incredible athletes or just world-class athletes. They're not doing everyday things here. And the
Sha'Carri
stories
Richardson.
behind their
I mean,
Yes.
yeah, Sha'Carri Richardson. I mean, there's so many that we can tap into. Now, Becca, I do want to go back to something you said at the top, though. You talked about how either women's leagues or the WNBA specifically, their fans are different than the fans of males professional leagues. I want to push back on that a little bit. Let's talk about this a bit because I have been a sports fan all my life, right? Like, even though I'm from the Bay, I might get some hate, but I've been a hardcore Yankee fan from the beginning. My parents from the East
never
Coast.
get tired of winning.
We never get tired of winning. I'm a big Yankees fan, but baseball is my favorite sport. And Nadine, your time in the MLB, you both have jobs that I'm like, God, I want to meet Nadine or Becca. They both work for organizations that I love. But when I've gotten annoyed at times when those professional leagues do things like create the pink hat or Wine Wednesday in order to get women into the stadiums, into the arena. Now, they are marketing sports in a terrible way in my mind, but they want to fill seats. They want to sell the pink version of that jersey or the girl top, the cut that fits the arms of women. So I understand their motivations there. But I would take it further and say that it's not that in my mind so much that the women's professional leagues are marketing different. I think they've just expanded their idea of what a fan could look like.
Totally.
Beyond the women who are going to wear the jersey anyway, who don't need the pink version of the hat to go be a fan, but to include those women who do, like you said, who are following these women on social media, who are interested in their meal plans, their exercise routines, the ways in which they are built friendships and brands outside of their sport. I think that has helped really kind of exponentially grow women's leagues. And again, the individual women like you two who have been in sports, not just women's sports, for a while now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I made my speech. What do you think?
I think that's such a great point. They've taken, it's become so much more than just the product on the court. Like the men have figured that out. That's awesome. They've figured out what the fan wants. I think the women's league, to your exact point, is we're going to lean in heavily on the product on the court, but how do we expand this to become more, I don't want to say like all inclusive, but they're taking the
broadening it,
and the team, and they're broadening what that means to the fan. And social media is huge, but these brands are seeing that, we're going to focus on the product on the court first and foremost, but we can lean into their personal lives. We can lean into who they are. They can be this and this.
Yeah.
And I think they've just run with that concept. And the people are just like, oh, now we're more bought in. I'm more bought into the team, their culture, the documentaries that are coming on Netflix. Like, I want to follow them because I want to see their content outside of the product on the court too. So I don't know. I think expansion is a really good word for what these leagues have done. Yeah.
I'm with you on that. And I would say, like, Nadine, I understand that you helped really bring in this nonprofit organization in the Bay Area. I believe it's Oakland-based Triple Threat. Triple Threat in basketball, of course, is you got to be in a physical position to either pass, shoot, or dribble. And you've been a triple threat. You played basketball, you played softball, and you were a student at the same time. But thinking about the investment in young people playing sports, I think to Becca's point, the expansion, the growth of how we tell the stories of athletes helps young girls see themselves as athletes. And when their bodies change, they're going through puberty, they don't have to turn it off. They can stay in the game and keep playing. Tell me a little bit about your idea around starting Triple Threat and how sports impacted you when you were young. When you were younger.
Well, I like to do it in reverse because I'll just touch on the end of what you guys were just talking about. I think that in the greatest of influences, the women's sports has influenced men's sports. I mean, think about the way that women, and first of all, they're not just gay women that are playing basketball and the image of what that woman is looks a certain way. The fact that this has expanded into the ability for a broad coalition of women to express themselves, and then social media, you have these followings, and now these companies want to support that. And who are they? they're different than that player you see on the court. They're these beautiful women that now have, you know, whether it's a makeup brand or a fashion line, and the women, I think, ushered in the runway, right? And the look and what you're wearing to the game, which has now, you see the men doing the same thing, right? And I just think that is so awesome. And the fact that now all these women can be their authentic selves, and you wouldn't, and the what that label has been deceived, right? Because even if you're this one culture or this one type, this label, you come off the court and you can be and express yourself entirely differently. And I think people are realizing that, young people can realize that their unique selves can be expressed in a bunch of different ways. And I think the women have led that charge, which I think is fantastic. You know, the idea of the triple threat piece was the gentleman that ran the boys piece, you know, came back to me and said, you know, do you have any ideas for this? And I said, yes. I mean, the idea for young women, what women want to do is feel like they're part of something, and they want to do it with people that they care about. And I think that is the same for business, sports, the C-suite that Becca's COO is leading, and because women want to contribute. That doesn't mean they don't want to be the leader. They all do. But there's something that there's that commitment by women to rising everyone up and engaging and bringing people in, which I think is just the most fantastic thing. And now the fact that you can see both of those, you know. And so what I mentioned to him as far as launching that was, we really have to make an effort for these young girls that are going to show up to this initiative to feel like they matter, that their participation matters. They want to share that experience with the others. They don't want to just work on their layup and show off. And there's nothing wrong with showing off. It's just that when you dial it back, I mean, you see it. I think it's so interesting to watch sometimes the college women's basketball games or the soccer games, when you have a chance to see the women engage with the fans when it's over. It's always with the fans. It's not with each other, which I think is, again, so telling. So, I mean, I just get so excited about all these pieces of the conversation. So I hope I haven't wavered too far off of what
No, we're with you. We're with you. And what's something that stuck out to me was the fact that you're talking about the need or desire for it, even when you're young, to feel like you're a part of something.
Yeah.
I don't think that really goes away when you become an adult. You're always kind of looking for your community. And I would imagine WISE has been that for you guys.
Yeah.
And in addition to being members, you guys have stepped up. The both of you have stepped up to be parts of leadership. And I'm wondering, Becca, what about your experience with WISE led you to believe, like, not only do I want to just be a part of this, I want to be part of leadership to help shape their experience as members?
Yeah, such a great question. I mean, I think that the transition from like playing sport to working in sport for women has been less of a natural transition, as women were, you know, big leaders in the sports business. Like, that's all starting to change. But like, I think Nadine and I, when you ask us why are we a part of WISE, like, we want to be that connective tissue to bring, to her point, like a community of women together. And we're all in this together. We might be on the agency side, brand, team, league, everyone's all across the board, but we crave community, and we want to be around women who are passionate and driven and love sports and believe in what they do and care about like helping build other women up, you know? So creating spaces and events that bring this type of women together in leadership and share, it's thought leadership, it's community, it's doing something fun, it's learning together. I think being a part of being that connective tissue across the whole Bay Area, when people live in Oakland and South Bay and the city. But I mean, I just think there's so much to be said about creating spaces for women to share their experiences and to feel like they're a part of something bigger than maybe just their day-to-day job. Like, that's what, when times get tough, that's what brings us back to why we are a part of WISE.
Well, tell me a little bit more about the events itself. As the events chair, like, what are the things that you want members to walk away with after they've attended a mentoring event or some kind of skills up-leveling event?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we really try on the events team to like have a vast variety of events. So doing events with, ERGs of teams, or doing a happy hour that's just casual and low pressure, or doing a college athletics panel that's really like thought leadership and networking heavy. I think what after every event, I want people to walk away saying like, wow, that community is something I can't find anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And it's when you go to an event that it feels fun, it feels like people want to be there. Do you know what I mean? And I think when we try to drive membership and create value that they can't get anywhere else, they might have professional development within their own staff or that team, but really bringing people from all different backgrounds to different events, I think that's the value that we bring. And I mean, it's just no one else has that kind of power to leverage across agency, brand, and league. And so just making them feel like they have a place, and that they can come and kind of take off the mask and just be like, this is me. And I'm so happy to be here. And I'm happy to be around women that are in similar positions to me, and having, events for these younger females that are coming out of college and wanting to get in the sport industry. How do we mentor them? But also, how do we engage people that are now in the C-suite and have been carrying the torch and have been a part of WISE for so long? And that intergenerational connectivity, I think, we don't do it perfectly, but that's really the hope, is that there's a mentoring piece to this. And that's why people keep coming back, is like, I want to be that person. How do I get there? How do I create a relationship with her that helps me along the journey? And I mean, I can't even tell you, even within our board, like there's been so many things. It's like, well, I knew that person in WISE, and that's how I got my next job.
Yeah.
Like it's spurring along their career, along with bringing together a unique community.
Yeah. Nadine, what do you think about that? You're also in leadership. You're the chair of marketing and communications. And I'm wondering, are you marketing and communicating to external audiences about WISE? Tell me a little bit about what that looks like.
All of it.
My role's about a year old, and most of what Becca and I have tried to put together as our list of priorities is to help support and create these new engaged events. And Becca's just done an amazing job, and our job is to really complement that and make sure the word gets out. Internally, though, there's obviously the attractiveness of WISE for young people, but our goal is to also continue to maintain that connectivity with the C-suite and the executives that have found success, that might not need, if you will, the WISE community, but WISE needs them.
Yeah.
And so we need to figure out ways to keep them engaged. And I will say, not that I was like the COO, but I've been a WISE member for over 20 years, but I've not participated until now, because I was that, the executive that was working, that was like, oh, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
My goal now is to really look at this from a different perspective, because I want to give back and engage the young women, but also figure out ways to re-corral the women that are in this Bay Area and or wherever we can pull them in from, to say, we need to still connect. Your participation, even if you just show up to chit chat for an hour,
we need you.
We need you.
Yeah. You need the wisdom for WISE.
Exactly. And it's not going to be a heavy lift, but you don't realize how valuable just you being there. And so, those are some of our really focused goals, and to really, I'm trying to figure out ways to speak to the old me to say, no, just show up, and because there's got to be a way for us to collectively communicate to this large group that we're all in this, and we all continue to share this commitment to each other. To Becca said that, we really want you to feel like you're part of this.
And I mean, it's tough. Like, it's volunteer, it's work, it's all of those things. But every single time I leave a WISE event, I'm like, that's why we do what we do. Like bringing, and even like people who we get to come just to chit chat for an hour, they're like, thank you. This kind of felt like out of my way and inconvenient, but like, I'm so glad I came, and I'm making connections and meeting new people and like strengthening the relationships that I have. And I just think there's so much value in this community, and that's why we still exist, is because people my dog, people still see the value of us. And even if there are times and seasons where they're really busy and they can't invest, like coming back around when you can't, like, it's just that community is so important, and it helps women in sports in the Bay Area to grow, you know?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what you said about people showing up, maybe not knowing what they can contribute, but once they get there, they feel like, oh, I'm glad I came. I hope you feel that way about joining me for this conversation. Not knowing who I am, saying yes to the invite. I appreciate you both joining me on this episode. And I appreciate what you're doing for Bay Area sports, women who work in sports, women's sports, continuing to pay it forward, creating events and opportunities for us to connect. Because
Olivia, back at you.
Yeah.
Your passion jumps off the page, and it's jumped out in this conversation. Thanks for having us.
I hope to see you in person soon. I got to get on a plane. I miss the Bay.